Before we get into today's video, if you hate the Packers and you can't stand Green Bay and that fraud Aaron Rodgers, type FGB in the comments and like the video. Hit the thumbs up icon as well. I'm asking you to do two things, but you should, because the hatred for Green Bay has to run in your blood to be a fan of this team. FGB, like the video. Remember, month of June, all about likes at Chat Sports. Let's beat the competition, and as always, FGB. Welcome into Bears Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Harrison Graham. On today's show, we're going to do free agent targets, but with a twist. 10 free agents that I believe would start for the Bears right now. So we'll take a look at who some of those guys are in just a moment. But the latest in the Bears offseason, Chicago's got money to make some moves, especially after cutting Jeremiah Attachu just under $24 million in projected cap space. Now, Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon's money hasn't been accounted for yet, so once they officially sign, you're at about $22 million, but you still have plenty of room there. Several big-name free agents are out there, guys that I think could contribute, if not start for this team. The question is how much does Ryan Poles want to spend in terms of, okay, we want to get a couple of guys that can help this year, but also roll over some money to next year on the salary cap to have even more money to spend in 2023. I'll say this. I still think a move or two could happen and probably will happen, right? I don't think the Bears are going to roll into the regular season with over $20 million in cap space. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that'll happen. I think they will use at least a few million bucks of that money to maybe add an offensive lineman, a receiver, defensive tackle. There's several positions the Bears could add a player or two, so I think that's definitely a possibility. Now, you're in charge. You're Ryan Poles. You're making the roster decisions here. Name a free agent that you think would start for the Bears that you want to go sign right now. Who's that guy out there? I don't care what the player is, what the position is. Name a free agent that you think would start for the Bears right now. All right, 10 free agent targets that I believe would start for this football team. I'm not, I put numbers down there, but it's not necessarily in order of value, so keep that in mind. Eric Fisher, left tackle. Listen, if Braxton Jones is getting first-team reps at OTAs and minicamp, that probably means you don't have a ton of confidence at left tackle. That's just the reality, which is why I also will mention Duane Brown here, who's a free agent as well. Look, Eric Fisher, Duane Brown, these are not world beaters. They're probably past their prime, but they can be serviceable starting left tackles. Honestly, like what you got from Jason Peters last year, who actually played pretty damn well. I think it's pretty clear the Bears are not sold at what they have at left tackle right now. They flipped Tevin Jenkins back to right tackle during OTAs. And then Larry Borom was getting first-team reps there. Well, Braxton Jones for a couple of practices got left tackle work there. And then Borom was over to right tackle. And Tevin Jenkins was with the second team. Clearly, the tackle position is up for grabs still. That has not been finalized. Not saying it needs to be finalized in June, but my point being, if you want to take the stress out of it, you could just go sign Duane Brown or Eric Fisher, and then you'd be good to go at left tackle. Wouldn't be a stud over there, but for a one-year Band-Aid, I think you could do a lot worse. Now, who do you think is going to be this team's starting left tackle? I don't think it'll be Tevin Jenkins. I think the Bears have decided he's going to play on the right side, whether it's tackle or guard, whether he's starting or a backup, we'll see. Do you think it's going to be Larry Borom? I would give him still the favorite early on here. Type LB. If you think it's going to be someone else, type other, or you can or type O for other, or type another name in the comments like Fisher or Duane Brown or someone else. LB for Borom or O for other. Our next free agent target that I believe could start for the Chicago Bears. How about Ndamukong? Listen, say what you want about Sue. His dirty antics in the past, this and that, yada, yada, yada. Played for the Lions, we know. He can still play, though. He can still play at a pretty high level. He's been a key contributor for Tampa, played well for the Rams a few years ago. 12 sacks in the last 2 years at defensive tackle. You're telling me he would not start at the one tech next to Justin Jones? I think he would. I think he's better than Mike Pennell, who you just brought on, and Kyrus Tonga and some of these other guys that are decent rotation options. Again, this video is about guys who I think would start. I think Ndamukong would start. How about Larry Ogunjobi, who is more of a three-tech tackle? Listen, if he's healthy and passes a physical, he's a better player than Justin Jones. Now, the beauty of it is you could slide Jones over to the other defensive tackle spot. He's kind of a tweener in terms of size, but I think he could play next to Ogunjobi at that spot as a decent run stopper. Larry Ogunjobi last year was terrific. He had 7 sacks as an interior pass rusher, 16 quarterback hits. There is a reason that Ryan Poles was ready to invest 3 years and $40 million in Larry Ogunjobi. Obviously, a failed physical threw a wrench into things, but he's still out there. He's still available. Now, maybe that tells us he's not healthy, but cheap 1-year deal, prove it year, I think it could work out if he can pass that physical. You could slide him into Jones' spot. Jones could kick over. And then the rotation of guys you have with Tonga, Blackson, Pennell's now in the mix, which I need to throw him on the depth chart. Kamara, a couple other guys. I absolutely think something like that could work for Chicago. Obviously, his health is the biggest question mark when it comes to Ogunjobi. Bears fans, our goal still continues, trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by training camp. Getting a little closer, brick by brick here, just over 1,600 away, as we first have to cross 49,000 subs to get to 50,000. Can we get there? Got about 5-6 weeks, depending on when the Bears start training camp. Let me know if we can get there. Subscribe. It's up to you guys. A lot of you guys already have sub, but if you haven't, daily videos on this channel. Let's make it happen. The latest news and rumors on the Chicago Bears. All right, so let's go to the offensive side here. Back to it, I should say. Emmanuel Sanders. Now, there's a few receivers you could pencil in here. Maybe you think, Will Fuller could start, and I think if healthy, that would probably be the case. Maybe a Julio or a Cole Beasley. I opted to go with Sanders because Sanders is still a pretty good slot receiver. He's a true pro, a vet. I think if you plugged him in, there's an argument that he's better than Byron Pringle. Now, I'm not saying that's for sure the case, but even if not, I think he's probably a top 3 receiver for this team. Now, maybe Pringle and Velus Jones would be better, but I think if he signed today and you had to play in a game right away, who would you trust more, Emmanuel Sanders or Pringle or Velus Jones? I think a lot of people would say Emmanuel Sanders, just saying. He's a guy that's been really good for a long time. Tyke Tolbert knows him from his time in Denver. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you have to go sign Sanders. I'm simply saying a guy like him could help you out. It's as simple as that. Follow us on the Call-In app. Hit that subscribe button over there when you go to chatsports.com/BearsCallin. It's an audio social podcasting app. We go live every single week on Tuesdays after our YouTube streams. There's a caller queue. You guys hop in it. I take your calls. We talk back and forth. It's a whole lot of fun. It's Twitter Spaces on crack. That's what I call it here. Your chance to call in and connect with me. My chance to connect with all of you. There's a link to download on iOS and Android in the comments and in the description as well. If you're watching on TV right now on a Fire Stick or something like that, take a picture of this QR code. It'll redirect you to Bears Now on Callin. That way you can subscribe right there. Let's continue to grow because I want to do some post-game shows during the 2022 season. All right, 5 more guys here. Quinton Spain, former guard from the Bengals. I think right guard's your biggest hole right now. Unless Tevin Jenkins is going to kick in there or Larry Borum, you got to get a guard, in my opinion. I think Quinton Spain's the best option on the market. I think he would start for this team, so I would go sign him. Daryl Williams is a tackle guard flex guy. He's played both positions. Now, he's played a little bit more right tackle in his career, but he's played both, and he's played both at least at serviceable levels. Now, he's not a stud, and really none of these guys are stars. There's a reason they're unsigned at this point in free agency. It's either injury-related or they're just not as good as they once were. But I think he'd be an upgrade at right guard, and if you're unsure about right tackle too, he could start there. I mean, at this point, left tackle, right guard are all undecided. That's just a fact. Williams can play right guard or right tackle. Don't think you want him playing left tackle. But his versatility is valuable, and I think he'd have a chance to start on this team. What's the bigger need for the Bears? I think it's got to be O-line with this recent development of Braxton Jones getting reps at left tackle. Now, maybe it's because they're high on him. They think he's going to be a beast, but I kind of think it's that no one's taken stranglehold of the offensive line spots. Wide receiver or O-line, type WR for receiver, OL for offensive line. What do you think is the Bears' bigger need? Let's go to Anthony Barr next, who's dealt with some injuries the past couple of years, but the Bears should be familiar with him as he spent a lot of time with Minnesota in recent years. I think Barr could start at Sam linebacker. You've got Roquan Smith and Nick Morrow, who are going to be your will and middle linebacker. It's somewhat undecided who's going to play where there, but that can be somewhat interchangeable. Now, you're going to be in nickel a lot, but Matthew Adams is not going to start. I mean, I just don't think that's a good option there. I mean, maybe Jack Sambor, the UDFA, or Caleb Johnson can start at Sam, but a guy like Anthony Barr, I think, could easily be your second or third best backer, and I would much rather go in that direction. Now, these last two guys are kind of wild cards for obvious reasons, and we'll get to number 10 in a second. But number 9, Odell Beckham Jr. No crap he would start for this team if he was healthy. He's not healthy. That's the problem, right? And, I mean, problem number 2 beyond this, whether any of these guys are realistic or not, I think some are more than others. Him signing with the Bears makes no sense for him. Unless the Bears just want to throw crazy money at him, he's going to sign with a contender. He'll probably go back to L.A. And just run it back with them once he's healthy. But if he was healthy, he would obviously start for this team. I mean, he would at worst be the number 2 receiver for the Bears. So, wanted to mention him because he does fit the bill of the title of this video, 10 free agents that would start. The problem is he's not healthy, so that's the reality of the situation. Now, would you sign OBJ for this Bears team if he was healthy? The answer still may be no, because this team may not be ready to contend this year. Type S for sign, type P for pass. What would you do if OBJ was healthy? All right, number 10, another wild card, J.C. Tretter. The reason he's a wild card is the Bears are pretty fully committed to Lucas Patrick at center at this point. But if you're talking about guys that would start for this team, you could sign J.C. Tretter to start at center and move Lucas Patrick to right guard. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. And quite frankly, I don't even know if it makes sense to do that. Now, obviously, you'd be getting 2 starters out of it instead of just 1, which is what you have right now in Lucas Patrick. But Patrick and Fields are building that center quarterback continuity. Do you want to change that in middle of June or in July at training camp? That's probably fair to question if you want to do that. But in terms of guys that would start, I think Tretter would start, and then you could put Patrick at right guard. I just don't think it's going to happen at the end of the day. So there you go. 10 free agents that I believe would start for this team if the Bears signed them. Name a free agent that you think would start for the Bears that you would like to go out and sign. I want to hear it from you guys down in the comments right now.